In today's session, we are going to take a look into how to harness the power of storytelling in interviews. Before plunging on to the crux of the topic, let's take a look at what is an interview and what are some of the common questions that are normally asked in an interview. Now, interview gives you an opportunity to share your skills and expertises related to the role. Throughout the interview, you might be asked to provide examples that highlight your capabilities. Thus, it becomes important that you have small stories which will help you prove that you are a potential candidate as far as the organization is concerned. Engrossing your hiring manager with short stories will evince that you possess the right credentials for their role. If there are n number of candidates applying for the same and you want to stand out, it's more important that you are able to present your story in an interesting and a memorable way. Now, what are the common questions that are normally asked in an interview? Why don't you tell us something about yourself? Why do you want to work with us? Have you ever handled a conflicting or a stressful situation? Can you throw some light on your negatives and positives? Now, in answering all these questions, we have to ensure that you provide your examples in such a way that your potentials are normally highlighted. Why stories? Now, stories make you memorable. Normally, facts fade away. But when you make it as a story, the story sticks. Say for example, you are able to share an experience or a success that you have had. The interviewer remembers you, not just your resume. They show, they just don't tell. Now, it's very easy for all of us to say, I'm a very committed person, I'm a very sincere and a dedicated person. But if you are able to put this in a form of a small example, the impact is more. Let's see this with a small example. Now, you could say something like, during the last week we had our events and one of the judges just called it off 2 days before the event due to his personal commitments. I took the initiative to find out an alternative judge with a similar profile, and we also ensured that we tweaked the schedule a little in order to accommodate the incoming judge, and overnight we sat with the designing team to ensure that the entire invite and the brochure was re-devised. Now, this was very hectic, but we were able to pull it off and we did an excellent job and the event went on very smoothly. Now, when you narrate this, the impact is much more than rather than saying, I am a committed person. Stories show your personality. Now, stories normally gives a glimpse to the interviewer about who you are, what are your values, what are your attitudes, how could you work in a team, will you be able to lead a team, and so on. Finally, they build an emotional connection. Now, all said and done, the interviewer by himself is a human being and we humans are wired to respond emotionally to stories. So, if you can make a connect with the interviewer either in terms of your story, make it very interesting or memorable, then that seems to make your job much easier. Prepare your stories. Now, when you prepare your stories, there are two important things that you have to lay emphasis on. One, you need to make an adequate research to figure out what are the company's most important values and ethics. Have some amount of knowledge in terms of the company's mission and vision statements. This is the first thing that you will have to ensure that you have adequate information on. The second thing that you would look into will be in terms of your job responsibility or your job description. You will have to have a complete analysis of your job descriptions because this is what is going to highlight what are the skill sets that is required for the job. Now, once you have the company's values and you also have the job description or the expertise that's required for the job, it becomes easier for you to build these stories. Now, when you start building the stories, it could either be one story in which you could fit in all these things, or you could have multiple stories according to your requirement. Now, once you've started building on the stories, please ensure that you have a detailed notes for all the stories that you have written. Read through it, revise it, tweak it wherever you feel it needs to be tweaked, and then finally go ahead in terms of preparing either a mind map or an infographic so that you can just store it, and when you deliver it, the presentation becomes very spontaneous. Now, when you present your stories, you will have to ensure that you use a STAR framework. Now, what is a STAR framework? STAR framework stands for S stands for situation, where you describe the background. T stands for task, what is your responsibility as far as the event is concerned. When I say action, what did you actually do? And results, what is going to be the outcome. Now, let's understand this with a small example. You can say that you were in charge for one of the flagship events of our college, the international conference which was held last month. We were given a fixed budget and your responsibility is to ensure that the entire event was conducted within the budget. This is the background. So, what is the background? They have given you a fixed budget and you are supposed to execute the entire event within the given budget. Now, midway through the planning, you have realized that you have shot up to the extent of 25%. So, the description about the background is given. Now, what is your task? Your task will be, I was entrusted with a task to ensure that I stick on to the budget without compromising on the quality or the scale of the event. That was the task. Now, action. What was the action that you did? I immediately called for a team meeting. We sat and reassessed every single item on the budget, and then we did a cost benefit analysis of all the other expenses which are yet to be executed, and we narrowed down on 3 important points on which we could lay a focus on. 1. We negotiated with the vendor and brought down the conference credit charges. 2. We identified a local sponsor who could sponsor and brand our events. 3rd, we brought in few silly reasons to set up a pasta stall during the days of the conference. Now, all this brought in a significant amount of funding, and moreover, we tried to switch over to digital banners wherever possible instead of physical banners. Thus, we brought down the decor and printing charges also to a great extent. So, that was the action that we took. And what was the result? The result was we were not only able to bring back the event back within the budget, but we also ended up the event with a small surplus. Now, this without having any compromise in terms of the quality or the scale of event, and we had received a positive feedback both from the participants as well as that of our faculty members. Now, this personally helped me to identify and understand how important is critical real-time decision making and team coordination, especially when it comes to handling financial responsibilities. Now, when you present this in such a story, it is easy for the interviewer to understand the entire concept and even remember you as an individual who had fared for the interview. Now, there are certain common qualities which an interviewer normally expects, like the individual who joins the organization should be enthusiastic, should have the willingness to learn, should be able to manage time, should be able to multitask and stuff like that. Now, how are you going to give the interviewer a glimpse into these qualities that you possess? Now, what you can do is you can always reflect on your journey in M.O.P. Now, why should you reflect on your journey in M.O.P? Because right from the first year till the final year, there is a lot of transformations that have taken over these years. Say for example, you could say that you started off as a class representative in the first year, and then you moved on to be the club secretary in the second year, and then as a president of the club in the third year. Or you could say that how you were an MP in the first year and then you moved on to be the deputy minister in the second year and the minister in the third year. Or you could even say that during the first year you've been very quiet, and in the second year you took over the initiative to arrange and coordinate all the guest lectures, and now in the final year you are absolutely in charge for maintaining the department's information system, MIS. Something like this, which will automatically tell you how you have grown over the years. So, this will tell you that you have been an enthusiastic person, you have had the willingness to learn, you have been able to manage time, you have been able to multitask because you have also done your academics and you have also been able to do and participate in all the other activities and events. So, these are some of the qualities which can be highlighted. Now, not all questions in an interview are positive. Sometimes they might ask you, what is your negative qualities? Can you tell me what are your weaknesses? Now, when you answer this question, you need to ensure that you have 2 important points to be kept in mind. 1, you should know how to positively frame your weakness. 2, you should also convey that you are a person who is self-aware of this weakness and you are reflecting on it on a constant basis in order to overcome the same. Can we try this with a small example? Yes. Say for example, if there is a question, what is your greatest weakness? You could say, I have a difficulty in saying a no when requests come, and as a result of which I take up more than what I can handle. Now, what have you done? Your weakness is you cannot say a no. So, what happens? You end up taking up much more. This shows the interviewer that you are a person who could extend and work. So, you framed it positively. Now, how are you going to tell him that you are working on it to come out of it? You could always tell, of late whenever requests like this come for extended help, I look into my schedule, I look into my priorities, and then I tried telling them diplomatically, I have a deadline to be completed by 4 p.m. today. In case if I finish it a little early, I will sit with you to help you out in your work. This is how I am trying to reflect and rework on my negatives. Now, some tips for a lovely storytelling. One, you have to be very specific, right? You don't have to give them vague answers, because once you give them vague answers, they start digging in, and probably at one point of time you may not be prepared to handle the same, and therefore we will lose it out. So, be very specific. Be concise. Now, when I say be concise, at times when they give you an opportunity and ask you, tell us something about yourself, right? You can just talk to the point and then leave it, right? You don't have to keep continuously talking, beating around the bush. And then be authentic. Now, I've taught you how to prepare your stories. I've taught you how to deliver the stories. Now, there is one point that you have to keep in mind. Just because it is something which is prepared and delivered, it should feel that it is authentic. How do we go about it? Your facial expressions, your body language, and your voice modulation, everything should be in a sync, and that's when the flow becomes very spontaneous. And last, practice, right? You could always try it once with your friends or relatives or whomever with who are comfortable. Practice it and see how the flow goes, and you get the hack of it. And most important, your entire story should be focused or tailored to the company's values and the skill sets that is expected of the job. Thank you, girls. I hope you've understood the content very clearly. In case if you are interested in for more such videos, you could always look into M.O.P Classroom.